Gibson present. Hensen.
Present.
Hensen present. Her.
Present.
Her present. Acom.
Present.
Acom present. Albrecht.
Present.
Albrecht present. Backer. Backer. Faber.
Faber present.
Faber present. Green. Green present. Heinzman.
Present.
Heinzman present. Hollins.
Hollins present.
Hollins present. Langseth is excused. Moore.
More present.
Moore present. Peichel.
Michael present.
Peichel present. Putnam. Putnam present. Reese.
Present.
Reese present. Westrom.
Present.
Westrom present. Currently, there are 14 present.
Quorum is present. Senator Green, would you like to move the minutes for April 29th? Senator Green moves the minutes for April 29th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Minutes are approved.
What point of order, Mr. Chair? He just promoted you or demoted you. I'm not sure. But
I think it was a demotion, potentially. Members, any potential conflicts of interest regarding today's business? I see a hand up. Member Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to declare conflicts of interest on 4 projects, 2025-078, agrivoltaics 2.0, building a resilient e-farm, 2025-218, Uwe Kortsagen, Minnesota Center for Agrivoltaics, 2025-241, Joel Tullochson, Foundational Precision Agricultural Data, and 2025-249, Jennifer King, Industrial Decarbonization, Minnesota through Sustainable Aviation Fuels.
Any other members?
I have a conflict of interest. This is Seth Moore on 2025309 Moose Fecundity and Recruitment.
This is Jeremy Peichel. I've got a conflict on 122 Jenny Bubke's Local Parks, Trails, Natural Areas Grant Program, State Parks and Trails Division, DNR.
Senator Putnam.
I have a conflict of interest on the AORI proposals. I'm looking for the numbers currently, but I serve on the board of that organization.
Any other members? Thank you. Our next item of business, Senator Putnam, welcome, our new member from the Senate. Want to say a few words?
Well, I'm just grateful to be here. I guess those are pretty few words.
Thank you. Director's report, Ms. Nash.
Good morning, members. Okay, so at our last meeting, we had mentioned that we had hired new staff, and we introduced you to Lisa Bigouette. And today we wanted to give Tiffany Schaffler an opportunity to show her face and say hi. She's joining us remotely today. And if Tiffany maybe wants to say a word so that the video picks you up and you can then wave and say hi. And then, well, maybe. Is it on speaker view, folks? Okay, there we go. There's Tiffany. Thank you. So Tiffany started on March 2nd as a project analyst and grant monitoring specialist and has already been providing great assistance. And so we want to welcome Tiffany. Checking in on a couple other items. We still haven't been able to process yet all of the final reports from last year, from 2023. We had 79 projects complete their work in 2023, and we've included a spreadsheet on the meeting page today for those projects, along with a soundbite of what they accomplished. And then there's a link there to their full final report, which will be posted once they are approved and ready for that. We've had some of these project managers already come in and tell you about the results of their project, but if you see any more on this list that you're interested in having come in and present before the commission, please let me know. And so again, thank you to the project managers for your work to protect and enhance Minnesota's environment and natural resources. Thank you for your patience to those project managers who still have their reports that need to be processed. And thanks, of course, to LCCMR members for making the funding for all these projects happen. Peer review, so we talked about the last meeting that we had 32 of the 101 projects that were funded as part of the 2024 RFP cycle. These are projects that just got approved by the legislature. 32 of them were research projects that required external scientific peer review before being funded. We've now completed that peer review for all but 2 of those proposals, and we also included a spreadsheet on the meeting page with that peer review list and the status. And please let me know if you have any questions about peer review in any way. The process is kind of guided through statute, but if you want any additional information, please let me know. Calendar for the rest of the year. This is kind of going in random order, but calendar for the rest of the year. We still have some holds on your calendars in August and September that we are going to release for everyone except for those on the strategic planning subcommittee members. So no meetings will be held in August and September, except for a subcommittee meeting on August 20th and also a subcommittee meeting on September 24th if needed. So we will get those holds released on your Outlook calendars, and then we will update our calendar handout and have that for you at the next meeting. Senator Morrison, you may have heard, has resigned her spot on the Senate, so we are down 1 member today and hope to hear from the Senate Committee on Committees soon on her replacement. Also an update that I did meet with the governor's staff and did go present before Minnesota Indian Affairs Council about the LCCMR position that is ready for them to make their recommendation to the governor on. And the governor has updated us that he will be making those appointments at the end of the year. So there will be actually 3 appointments that they'll make at the end of the year. 2 of them will be for the full 4-year term, and 1 of them will be for the 3-year term. And that's to align with MIAC's decision-making process and timing. I wanted to bring your attention to this fabulous book that we had delivered to our office called The Breeding Birds of Minnesota, History, Ecology, and Conservation.
Nice.
This is the result of, excuse me, funding that we provided over several years to the Audubon Society and partners on the Breeding Bird Atlas. And it is just, it's gorgeous. It's amazing reference information. And this will be on our library bookshelf in the LCCMR. And I definitely encourage you all to take a look at it. It's just beautiful.
Mr. Chair, I would add that book is only about $60 for the whole thing. It's incredible. I had a copy before they got printed. But anyways, yes, I would agree. Thank you.
So something to be proud of.
University of Chicago Press.
University of Minnesota Press.
All right, from Chicago. We don't have it here. Just saying.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I wanted to direct you to 1 additional handout that is posted on the meeting page today, and also we put it on top of your packets today. It is a copy of an email from the MPCA, Pollution Control Agency, with their input on whether or not certain proposals through this 2025 cycle were considered solid and hazardous waste disposal sites. Or municipal water treatment facilities of the type that are deemed in our statute to be ineligible. You saw probably in your grading materials that staff had asked some questions about that fit, and it is up to LCCMR to just make a decision on that. But we thought that PCA input would be helpful for you to see. And so just wanted to draw that to your attention. And then finally, we do have some written public testimony posted on the meeting page. Diana, can you confirm, did we have anybody sign up for oral testimony today?
Rick Heller.
Mr. Heller, okay. So Mr. Heller has also requested to present during public testimony at the end of the day. That's it from me, Mr. Chair.
And then Ms. Nash, the session report.
Great, Mr. Chair. Members, the session report is in your packet. We've provided some summaries of bills passed during the session that affect LCCMR or the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund. We also provide a link to the ENRTF funding bill that was passed and signed into law by the governor on April 15th. And again, this is the earliest any staff remember this occurring. The ENRTF funding bill included 101 appropriations, project extensions, and prior year changes and corrections, and all exactly as it had been prepared for and recommended, or prepared by and recommended by the LCCMR. We also list a couple other bills and provisions of interest to ENRTF and LCCMR. Excuse me. Particularly the Omnibus Environment and Natural Resources Bill included a change to our statute 116P09 subdivision 6. This reduces the threshold of votes needed by LCCMR members to support the acquisition of land already in public ownership if there are direct personal financial conflicts of interest related to that vote. So this is similar to the change that occurred last year related to votes on the funding package, but now those rules apply to the vote needing to support funding for acquisition of land already in public ownership. Also included is a list of appropriations from other sources of funding to projects that we believe have been funded by ENRTF. We haven't had a chance to go through them with a fine-tooth comb or do analysis yet, but in some cases it may mean that those projects that we funded are now fully funded, especially with the construction projects. But again, we haven't done our analysis on that yet. And then finally, we wanted to draw your attention to a provision that was included in the Omnibus Labor and Industry Bill that adds alteration, improvement, and restoration of land for public use or benefit to the definition of projects that are subject to prevailing wage requirements. So we have not analyzed this to understand the impacts, but given the subject matter, we believe this will affect projects that we fund. And that is it for the session report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Nash. The next item on the agenda is to discuss and approve the 2025 trust fund proposals for further consideration and presentation. So, or in plain language, this would be the first cut for bringing in projects to consider to hear those presentations. Ms. Nash, do you want to describe the options and where we are at?
Great. So members, you all individually reviewed proposals and selected your top 71. Staff tallied the results and provide a memo and a spreadsheet with those results. And those were emailed to you all and posted on our website on June 7th. The commission decided on April 29th that the 91 proposals selected by the greatest number of members would be invited for presentation and further consideration of funding. This cutoff is shown on page 12 of the member compiled evaluation spreadsheet. And there's a line there with a tally of 91 proposals. You also agreed on April 29th that up to 9 additional proposals could be selected for presentation, 3 each by the House, the Senate, and the citizen member groups. So when we did got the compiled results, we see that the total amount requested by those 91 is a little over, is about $76 million. And we had been estimating that the total amount available for appropriation this year was around $90 million. However, with the rallies in the stock market that we've seen in the last month or so, that estimate is now at $100 million. So there now is a difference about $24 million between the amount being requested and the amount available. And staff have provided in the memos a few options for you to consider. Those options are number 1, that you could move the cutoff line from 91 to the next tier or 2 of projects selected by members to include those selected by at least 5, or you could go down further to at least 4. And this would bring the amount requested up to either 87 million, or if you go down to 4, it would be bringing it up to 113 million. And that would be 105 or 125 proposals respectively. And we have shown those cutoffs on the spreadsheet on pages 14 and 17. So that's the first option. The second option is you could keep the cutoff line where it is now, but you could increase the number of extra proposals that can be selected by the House, Citizen, and Senate member groups from 3 each, or maybe up to say 7 each. And 7 we just selected because based on average size of appropriations that seemed like it could maybe get you up to the amount that's available, but we can't guarantee that. We wouldn't know how much those proposals would request until you actually selected them, but it would at least bring it up to 112 presentations. And then option 3 is you could proceed as is. Just based on your 91 cutoff, and then recommend any extra funds go to the emerging issues account, go to next year's RFP, or could go to legislative discretion. And those options will be available to you during evaluation too, so you could use that process to figure out the amounts. As a reminder, we have 5 days scheduled for presentation and can accommodate 127 proposals within those days. So if any options that you land on today result in more than 127 proposals, we will automatically add on June 25th as an extra presentation day. So, Mr. Chair, we recommend taking action on these options first, and then after that, recessing to allow the groups to caucus and come back with their final decisions.
So we've got Ms. Gibson first, and then Mr. Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion that we select 5 and above, excuse me, on our list, and then allow each entity, the House, the Senate, and the citizens, to pick 7 more projects.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Chair. Senator Westrom.
I'm not sure I heard the last part of that, Commissioner Gibson. What about the 7 projects?
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gibson.
May I repeat? Yes, thank you. I am proposing as a motion to take all projects 5 and above for a presentation, and then now to go into our individual caucuses, the House, the Senate, and the citizens, and each caucus select 7 more projects versus selecting just 3.
Okay, so
Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Senator, Commissioner Gibson. So we'd each pick 7 more plus 5.
No.
Or, I mean, plus go down to number 5. Or
Yes.
5,
Yes.
5 ranks. Okay, and what's the total number of that, Mr. Chair or Commissioner Gibson, if you've already calculated that?
Ms. Nash.
Mr. Chair, I think that would be 91, and then 7 each. 7 times 3 is 21, so that would be 112 proposals if I did my math right. No?
And then if we went down to number 5, we'd be adding them too, I think.
Yeah, down to number 5.
So actually, if I'm thinking it was
126.
105 plus
Yeah.
21.
Okay, 126.
126, Senator Westrom.
Point of order, or I believe that math is incorrect.
I think it should be 120. I'm
No.
sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, math in public is
Okay.
not good, so let me just go back
We can
to,
get the number.
go down to 5 is 87 million, plus
You're right.
21 would be 108,
108 plus 21.
right? If we
Yeah.
go down to 5, that brings us to 87 million.
Yep.
And then you add on 21, that's 108.
Okay. So
But I'm getting a
Actually,
no.
Mr.
so
Chair.
hold on just a second. So we're mixing money and numbers.
Yeah.
So if we went down to 5, that would give
Oh,
us,
thank you.
Mr. Varian, how much would that give us if we go down to 5 in terms of
105.
numbers?
105.
Mr. Chair, members, so if we go down to 5 members out of the 17 selected, that gets us 105 proposals. If we add 21, we would be at 126 proposals.
Okay.
So the motion is to hear 126 proposals.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Westrom.
Just, I think this might not be a bad idea. I'm wondering, Commissioner Gibson, what your thoughts would be of, what if we caucused, if we agreed on doing 7 each and then came back with the idea that we'd take up the part of the motion to go down to 5. The only reason I'm wondering is if, once we see what perhaps 7 projects each group thinks are more important or worthy to bring in for presentation, it could affect the dollar amount. And so would it make sense to maybe do this in 2 steps with the spirit of the motion? I think is, probably close to what might make sense, but Does that make any sense, Commissioner Gibson, or you see what I'm trying to say? Just,
Commissioner Gibson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I understand.
Yeah.
So you in agreement that we do 5 and everything 5 and up? No, you don't want to do that.
I'm not opposed to that. I'm just saying, what if we did this in 2 stages? And I mean, perhaps either split the motion, or make one motion that we do 7, as each group picks 7 instead of 3, and then come back with the idea that we'd have to add more likely, but once we pick 7, each group, we're gonna add 21. And if everybody picks a $10 million project, which there isn't 21, so that's just an example, then we'd be out of money, or not out of money, but we'd just be well over what we could spend. But if everybody picks 21 projects that are letter H, we'd probably still be well below what's able to be spent. So then we could contemplate, should we go to 4? Should we go to 5? Should we, I don't, just an idea, Commissioner Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate
Commissioner
those,
Gibson.
appreciate those thoughts, but I think we don't know, and it doesn't mean that we can't come back and revisit it again. So I would like to stay with my motion that we pick 5 and above, and then let each caucus pick 7. And it doesn't mean that we can't come back and visit this again, but I think for now, should be our guideline.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, while I have the floor, just one more thought I want to throw out for people to maybe regurgitate on, and we can caucus and talk about it, is maybe if we go up to that many projects, maybe we have an opportunity to treat the project H proposals different or uniquely. And maybe they don't even have, I don't know, maybe they come in for a shorter presentation, maybe they submit written presentations, maybe we have a faster approval process for it, and we don't have then as many presentations to go over. Just some food for thought, Mr. Chair. We can talk while we caucus.
Yes. Commissioner Peichel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was actually a similar suggestion. What I was going to make was what Senator Westrom just mentioned, was perhaps we take up a thought of not inviting those who were heavily supported to present, to reduce the burden on commissioners and the number of presentations that staff would have to coordinate, if perhaps those that were supported by a majority of members get sort of left aside and assumed to be fully funded for the purposes of advancing the discussion.
I think we should consider that maybe after this motion. I do want to note we've got some people that have to leave. So I'd like to get the motion, the discussion on this motion, and then maybe break into the sub caucuses, because I want to make sure that we have people here for a quorum for their sub caucuses. So Representative Acom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to speak in favor of the motion, and I appreciate the comment that Senator Westrom made, but I think that would make it confusing for the caucuses to then know which group of projects to be choosing them from, if we are unsure if 5 and above is already approved or not. So I would just speak in support of the motion.
Commissioner Peichel. Your hand's still up.
Failure to lower the hand, Mr. Chair.
Is there any further discussion on the Gibson motion? Because we're hybrid, I believe we do need to take a roll call vote. So will the clerk take the roll?
Gibson. Yes. Gibson, yes. Hansen.
Yes.
Hansen, yes. Per.
Yes.
Per, yes. Acom.
Yes.
Acom, yes. Albrecht.
Albright, yes.
Albrecht, yes. Becker.
Backer, yes.
Becker, yes. Faber.
Faber, aye.
Faber, yes. Green. Green, yes. Heinzman.
No.
Heinzman, no. Hollins.
Yes.
Hollins, yes. Langseth is excused. Moore.
More yes.
Moore, yes. Peichel.
Michael, yes.
Peichel, yes. Putman.
Yes.
Putman, yes. Reese.
Reese, yes.
Reese, yes. Westrom.
Yes.
Westrom, yes. Currently, there are 14 yes, 1 no.
Motion is approved. We will now break into subcaucuses. And if we could take till 10 a.m. To pick each 7, we will have the staff provide technological assistance. Ms. Nash, you want to say which group goes?
Correct. Okay. Members, the Senate are going to go with Mike Campana into this next room right here, 22A. House members are going to go with Noah into the hallway room, which you get to through 22A. So go through 22A and take a left. And then the citizen members will go with me. We will go into room G20A, which is out the doors to the right, out through a second set of doors and into the room. And if you report your results to your staff lead will feed them into Michael, who will do calculations, and then we'll report them back to you when we come back at 10.
We are in recess.
Oh, we'll have them on our laptops. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to say that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, no, mine, and I'm all around flowers.
That's gonna make it's not so much of like one visit, and we're just like, so now we're going to train and like elsewhere. She's gonna.
Okay, we'll be starting in about 2 minutes. This is a 2-minute warning on starting the live streaming. We're waiting for the Senate. I don't know which ones you've got. Probably not.
Should I be returning at 10 p.m.?
Yes, you should be, Jeremy.
Okay, I'll go have a long lunch.
No.
And that includes our virtual colleagues as well. If, while we're waiting, you may want to complete your per diem forms. And we'll be, I think we're just waiting for Senator Westrom.
We're having to tally the Senate.
And we're tallying the Senate, so. Senator Westrom, we haven't reconvened, but I was just reminding people this would be a good time to do their per diem forms, so.
I'm just doing that, so.
And Senator Herr had to leave, so he is excused for the rest of the meeting. Senator Westrom, he did tell me to be careful with you. That staff, have we tallied the?
Thankfully, somebody else is doing the math and the tallying.
Why don't you, I'll reconvene and then we'll just give a roadmap for the rest of the meeting and this afternoon. Or just.
Yep, sure.
We will reconvene the meeting while we're having the tallies go forward. Ms. Nash, do you want to give a bit of a roadmap for the rest of the day?
Mr. Chair and members, so when we are finished with agenda item 7, by reporting on the adjustments at the selections that the House Citizen and Senate members selected, we will move on to agenda item 8, which is revisiting a memo that we had started discussing on April 29th by taking action on action number 3 and 4 of that memo. That will be followed by a brief strategic planning update, and then some public testimony. And then we will adjourn this meeting, and 30 minutes following adjournment, we will reconvene with the strategic planning subcommittee meeting. For the subcommittee members who are here in person and are staying for that, we have ordered sandwiches for you. So Diana, where will those sandwiches be? Are we bringing them out front? Okay, so, and it's just kind of a first come, first serve. We ordered a variety of sandwiches, so you can take those. And we do have to stay out of this meeting room with the food, so you can go outside on the step, I imagine would be the most appealing place to go on a lovely day like this and have your lunch and then come back at 30 minutes. And then, Mike, is there anything you want to say about the strategic planning meeting? Or, okay, great. Mr. Chair, that's it.
Are we ready for the results of the sub-caucusing? Mr. Varian.
Mr. Chair, members, yes, we are ready. So starting with the House, they selected 2025-081. And this would be line 168.
Line 168, is that correct?
Mr. Chair.
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Mike, can you just read the topic or the title of each project when you just read the number? It's just helpful to follow along that way.
So
Mr. Chair.
how about we'll read the title of the project, the number of the project, and then the line number of the project.
Mr. Chair, members, I can do that. So starting again, the House selections, Mesabi Trail, Aurora to Hoyt Lakes, project ID 2025-081, line number 168. The second one, Minnehaha Park, South Plateau, Oak Savannah Restoration, project ID 2025-282, line 126. Sportsmen's and Sportswomen Training Center, Phase 2, project 2025-227, line 118. Next, a riparian area adaptation strategy for Southeast Minnesota. project 2025-270, line 122. Next is Thompson County Park Restoration and Accessibility Improvements, project 2025-216.
216 or 5?
I have 216. And that is line 150. Next is the impacts of climate change on northeastern Minnesota, project 2025-180, line 177. And the last one is critical preparedness and outreach for possible CWD spillover, project 2025-098, line 138. And that is the 7 House selections. Next, I have the citizen selections. The first one is moving Minnesota towards a lead-free sporting future. Project 2025-296, line 128. I have Lake Billsby Regional Park Restoration and Recreation. Project 2025-213, line 149. We have native forages, growing drought and climate resiliency, project 2025-069, line 113. Next, we have renewable energy conversion for farm diesel and ammonia, project 2025-290, line 160. Next, we have Eagle's Nest, where the world becomes your classroom, project 2025-012, line 163. Next, we have continued aggregate resource mapping, project 2025-244, line 121. Next, we have citizen scientists capture microplastic pollution around state. Project 2025-191. That's line 146. And that is the 7 citizen selections. Next, we have the Senate selections. The first one is Foundation Precision Agriculture Data to Reduce Environmental Impacts. Project 2025-241, line 112. Then we have Innovative Solution to Renewable Energy from Food Waste, project 2025-306, and that's line 131. Then we have Scandia Gateway Trail Connection, Recreation Wetlands, Environmental Education, project 2025-201, line 148. Then I have Fueling the Future, Decarbonizing Regional Transportation Project, project 2025-313, line 161. Next, I have PLSS, Preservation to Protect Public Lands, project 2025-091, line 170. And finally, Agrovoltaics 2.0, Building a Resilient E-Farm, project 2025-078, line 192. And the Senate did select 6 of the 7 selections.
And Mr. Varian, do you have an aggregate amount of funds that are, so there's 125 projects selected, and what is the aggregate amount of those?
Mr. Chair, members, the aggregate dollar amount that is requested with those projects is 125,208,000.
And Senator Hurt.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have to one line here, on an emergency leave here, but, I know that the Senate side have not chosen all seven, and I like to put a voice for, more like the metro and, community engagement project that we may have left out, and I should have done my homework, but, usually folks with, equity or communities, they don't have advocates group or lobbyists to come and reminded us. So I'd like just to note that if we have left any project that our community environment with disaffected communities need, please include them. So I just want to note that in for in case we still need to add on to more projects. Thank you.
So just to clarify, Senator Hur, you're asking that the Senate still provide one project based on further review to try to look for community engagement.
Right.
I will open that up to the floor since we had a motion just to have a discussion on that. Commissioner Gibson, it was your motion. Any thoughts?
Yes, thank you. I want to make sure that I'm hearing this correctly. So the Senate still has one project to vote on, and he wanted a community project, and he did not recommend one that I could hear, or did he?
Commissioner Gibson, I believe that he wants to look through the list to Senator Westrom.
Yes, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, we kind of were arm wrestling over 3-4 different projects, and we might have come to a conclusion if we had more time, but we also did not come to a conclusion on this and a few other projects that we were kind of talking over, and it wasn't, it just wasn't conclusive. So I mean, at this point, we thought, let's just come forward with 6 projects, and the others got left on the table.
Senator Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification, and we are sitting at 125 million. We only have 100 million. I don't know that we need to add any more projects. It looks like we're gonna have to start cutting some. So probably the motion is not relevant.
I think just to see where we're at with this motion, this is on what to bring in.
Yeah.
So based on, usually when we hear projects, we may find things out of parts that aren't eligible or projects that aren't eligible, or maybe there's some that are really, really good and some that are not really good. So that's part of the assessment project. So generally when we usually have more projects come in with more money than we have, and then we cut after we hear them. So I think we're consistent with our past practice of bringing in more. We wouldn't cut more today generally, but when we hear the projects, usually there's some that are cut because we hear from them, may or may not be ready for prime time. So I don't know if that answers your question. I've got Acom, and then Senator Hur, and then Senator Putnam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to maybe make a comment about the presentations, and we're over the amount of money that we have now. And so as projects come to us for evaluation, it's my hope that maybe staff can inform those presenters who have maybe been identified with project costs that are not, that don't fit the qualifications for LCCMR funding. And so it's my hope that that can be notified, or in the presentation, we can only hear about those things that do qualify for our funding.
Senator Putnam.
I wanted to second Senator Hur's investment in equity concerns, but also acknowledge my own inability to parse what is already there. There may be a certain number of equity concerns that already got enough votes to already be in that space. But I do think that that's an important lens for us to adopt when we look at this stuff. And so I guess that's what I got. If there were a specific equity proposal for us to consider addition, I think that would be a discussion we could have. Because the general principle, I think, is a wise one, and perhaps maybe in the future that can become something that is designated in the proposals as they come through.
Senator Her.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Sarah Putnam. I did a little engine search here and identified line 193 or project 193 that deal with marginalized communities. So I would like to advocate for that one. And like to have my Senate member support primary, but all members if possible.
How, Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, just kind of in the process we're going forward with, I guess I'm wondering if I would suggest could we take another 10-minute recess? We've got a fairly short agenda all day, but I guess in the interest of maybe the precedents, each House, Senate, and citizens picking, if us senators could confer again and get Senator Her on the phone, maybe we could come up with an agreeable 7th project. I guess that's what I think would be a better way to go, and consistent with how the 7 projects come in from each group. If we could, I'd advocate for that.
Okay.
How, we have members who are going to that have to go at 11:45. I would I would call a 5-minute recess in order for the Senate to come back with one more recommendation. We are in recess.
Wow. You know the amazing thing? There's no overlap. I know. It's crazy.
I know. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
Becca. You may want to mute Senator Howe.
Senator Her,
Yes, I'm still here.
we'll put you in a breakout room.
And how many times?
Becca or Michael, that says 10:35 p.m.
Gonna be a long day.
Thank you.
The meeting will come to order. We are back from recess. Does the Senate have a decision on their seventh topic? Michael, you want to, or Noah? Which one?
Mr. Chair, we do, and I will let my members who are there speak and for the project as line number 193 is a Riverbend project. It's working with marginalized communities, African Americans, Latinx in Faribault area. So I'll let my members there talk about it. We do a little on wrestling, but I think we come to a larger consensus. So I'll let them speak. But thank you for your support.
Senator Westrom, we okay?
Mr. Chair, yeah, we've come to consensus on the project Senator Hurd just talked about.
So Michael, you want to read it one more time so we have it officially in the record?
Mr. Chair, members, the Senate has selected a seventh project, Riverbend Nature Center Outdoor Diversity Initiative, Project 2025-125, line number 193. And that brings the requested amount total to $125,455,000.
Senator Westrom, would you like to make a motion to accept all of those for consideration and presentation?
Mr. Chair, I will make that motion.
Senator Westrom moves. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Senator Westrom?
Not on, I mean, it's relevant to this, but I'd like after this that we maybe talk about some projects, maybe H projects that got a certain level of support, maybe a majority or 6 or more or 5 or more, that we would maybe consider not having them present if they've gotten a strong showing of support and are in the small category. But just raising that while it's kind of relevant to this discussion. It's not something I'm proposing to amend on this, but I'd like to maybe continue that discussion following this.
The clerk will take the roll.
Gibson.
Yes.
Gibson, yes. Hansen.
Yes.
Hansen, yes. Her. Her.
Yes.
Her, yes. Acom.
Yes.
Acom, yes. Albrecht.
Yes.
Albrecht, yes. Backer. Backer. Faber.
Faber, aye.
Faber, yes. Green. Green, no. Heinzman.
No.
Heinzman, no. Hollins.
Yes.
Hollins, yes. Langseth is excused. Moore.
More yes.
Moore, yes. Tykel.
Michael, yes.
Tykel, yes. Putnam.
Yes.
Putnam, yes. Reese.
Yes.
Reese, yes. Westrom.
Yes.
Westrom, yes. Currently, there are 12 yes and 2 no.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask Michael if he's got the information, but for the discussion purposes, I'd move, well, let me ask the question first, Mr. Chair, if that's all right. Mr. Varian, if we excluded the H projects that were 6 or 5 and above, 6, thinking that was the first cut we had at 91, how many projects less would we have for presentation showing their strong support? If you know, and I don't want to put you on the spot, if it takes a little while to quickly calculate that.
Mr. Varian.
Mr. Chair, members, so just doing a very quick glance and count, it looks like about 2 dozen, give or take, that would be in that 250 or less, the small projects.
Mr. Varian, Mr. Chair, Mr. Varian, would that be the 6 folks, those that got 6 votes or above?
Mr. Chair, members, yes, correct.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, I guess I'd move the motion, make the motion that we, for the purpose of presentations, that we exclude H projects with letter H projects that receive 6 or more members' votes on the scoring on the scoring process to winnow our presentation number down some, but I think those are areas that we could have strong support, and I think unless there's a reason that a member raises or staff raises, I think that would be a prudent way to go. So I'd make that motion right now.
So Senator Westrom, just to clarify, you're saying that we authorize or approve those projects in H that received more than 6 votes that are under 250,000 or above, that those are automatically selected without presentation. Is that your motion?
That's my motion, 6 or above, just to clarify your statement, 6 or more, but 6 or above 6, I'm saying 6 or more. Yes, but that's my motion for discussion.
Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not opposed to this motion. I do have concern that it may send the message that all of those projects will then be funded. And so I think that's something that we need to think about, because we will be reviewing the presentations and then voting on a fund, or choosing and then voting on a funding package. So I want to make sure we're not sort of falsely indicating to all of these folks that their project will be funded for sure.
Senator Westrom, is it your intent that those projects would be funded with this motion?
No, it's not, Mr. Chair. Certainly they'd be on a pathway of funding, but they'd be subject to cuts or removal or, continued deliberation by the commission. So it's, and maybe there's a hybrid model where we request a 1-page written recap, or Mr. Chair, maybe we even just ask them to come in and present 2 minutes by Zoom. They got to keep it brief and pithy, but smaller projects would also see a level of scrutiny that's not as big as projects that are asking for $500,000 or $1 million. So that's kind of the idea too, and efficiency.
Commissioner Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand the spirit of your motion. However, this is a state investment, and if we just give them money without having any scrutiny, I think it doesn't serve the Environmental Trust Fund. And I also think that there are probably some of these projects, I've not looked at all of them, that may not fit some of our new statutes. And on a personal note, I like to hear about these projects. They're from around the state. I think we want to see how they focus in on our package. And I think what you're really taking away from is our discretion and trying to put together a good package. So I am not in favor of this motion.
Senator Westrom, how about, in an effort of compromise, we just say that those projects are 5 minutes by Zoom rather than 10 in the presentations. And then, so they're not having the same as the largers. We do a 5-minute Zoom presentation. They don't have to come in. They're all going to be Zoom anyway, right? But 5 minutes is different than 10 minutes. And the responsibility would be on the commission members to do their homework before they come in, but we don't have him here, and that may save a little bit of time. So, Ms. Nash.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, I think the presentations are 15 minutes each, 5 presentation, 10 question. That's the default standard. So you might want to adjust based on that.
Yep, I was trying to see if Senator Westrom was open to something.
Mr. Chair, I would be open to some, you're on the same wavelength as I am. I think there could be a shorter version of a presentation, and they know right up front, don't come with a long presentation, make the main things the main things. So if there's a way to come up with something like that, I think your idea is on the right track.
I hear some chatter, but not necessarily a hand. Commissioner Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For clarification, it would be a 5-minute presentation. Is there an allotment of time for questions?
Senator Westrom, what do you think?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Commissioner Gibson, can you restate that
Yes.
question?
Do you want me to say it again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in favor of the 5-minute presentation, but I would like to add at least 5 minutes for questions from the commission.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, and maybe it's just not an issue, right? But I mean, we could say 5 minutes for scheduling.
Yep.
And then maybe a commission tries to schedule these presentations in a cluster. So if you go 6 minutes on one, you might average out with 4, but everybody goes into that morning or afternoon schedule knowing that these are tighter. They're shorter projects, smaller projects. And so I guess as we're thinking about it, maybe that would make sense. And for staff to have direction to just, know that we're going to do 5 minutes. So,
Senator Hur, if you could mute your audio. How about this? We do as anticipated, 5 and 10 for questions for the bigger projects. Those H projects under 250, let's do 8 minutes total, and they can choose how they want to do it. So they would have half the time as the 15 minutes for the bigger projects. How does that sound, Senator?
Mr. Chair, I think that's a good direction to go, with the caveat that staff tries to put them in groups of, a couple hours together. So I think that helps bring your efficiency. If you've got them interspersed, then it may not work to our efficiency. Sounds reasonable?
Yeah. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I like the intent of where this is going, but at the same time, a $10 million project was added. That's, I think that's maybe the highest LCCMR proposal ever. And kind of on the other side, I guess if we were to lower the H projects, then we could spend a little more time on these much larger projects, and that they have a much larger impact. So I think that's something that should be considered as well, that the more we limit the smaller projects that have already been scored 6 or above, the more time we have to spend on these more complex projects. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Westrom, so was your motion modified where it's your now your motion of 15 and 8?
Mr. Chair, I'll accept your proposal as a friendly amendment. We'd hear projects that had 6 or more votes from the commission, give them an 8-minute allotment of presentation and questions, and to the extent staff can group them together in blocks.
Is there any discussion to that motion? Clerk will take the roll.
Gibson.
Yes.
Gibson, yes. Hensen.
Yes.
Hensen, yes. Hur. Hur.
He's trying.
Acom.
Yes.
Acom, yes. Albrecht.
Yes.
Albrecht, yes. Backer. Faber.
Faber, aye.
Faber, yes. Green. Green, yes. Heinzman.
Yes.
Heinzman, yes. Hollins.
Yes.
Hollins, yes. Moore.
More yes.
Moore, yes. Pikel.
Michael, yes.
Pikel, yes. Putnam.
Putnam, yes.
Putnam, yes. Reese.
Yes.
Reese, yes. Westrom.
Yes.
Westrom, yes. Hur.
Her, yes.
Hur, yes. Currently, there are 14 yes, 0 no.
Motion approved. I would entertain a motion that the Washington Ramsey project, which is precedent setting at a large amount, be provided 20 minutes for question and answer.
So moved.
Reese moves. Any discussion?
A quick question.
Commissioner Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make, in the past, we've given a little more time for projects that are $1 million or more. Are we still going to do that this time around? Okay, that's all. That was my question. Thank you.
Clerk will take the roll.
Gibson,
Yes.
Gibson, yes. Hansen,
Yes.
Hansen, yes. Her,
Yes.
yes. Acom,
Yes.
Acom, yes. Albrecht,
Yes.
Albrecht, yes. Backer, Faber,
Faber, aye.
Faber, yes. Green, Green, yes. Heinzman,
Yes.
Heinzman, yes. Hollins,
Yes.
Hollins, yes. Langseth is excused. Moore,
More yes.
Moore, yes. Pikel,
Michael, yes.
Pikel, yes. Putnam,
Yes.
Putnam, yes. Reese,
Reese, yes.
Reese, yes. Westrom,
Yes.
Westrom, yes. Currently, there are 14 yes, 0 no.
Motion approved. Ms. Nash, next steps?
Mr. Chair and members, on to agenda item number 8. This is the agenda that's, the memo that's posted to the meeting page that has a date on it of April 22nd, 2024. And we are going down to action number 3. This is related to evaluation number 2 and your compiled results now that you have your presentation set. So for evaluation 2, each member will allocate the available amount of ENRTF dollars to their proposals of choice using the 10 LCCMR adopted evaluation criteria. Allocating funds to a proposal indicates that the member is supporting funding for that proposal. The member also indicates what funding level they believe is appropriate for that proposal. When a member has allocated all the funds available and you will have 100 million, each of you to evaluate, then your evaluation is complete. So the following conditions apply to evaluation number 2, and this is now pretty much our standard process. So number 1, no more than the requested amount may be allocated to a proposal. Number 2, only the full requested amount may be allocated to a proposal in category H. Number 3, allocations for all other proposals may not be less than $250,000. So if you're supporting a small project, you have to support it for the full amount. If you're supporting any other project, you have to support it for at least $250,000. A suggestion had been made at the end of last year's process that you might modify this so that if you're supporting a larger project, it has to be at least 50% of the request amount. Unfortunately, we have run out of time to be able to implement this option at this time because it would mean reprogramming our online system. So this might be something you want to discuss for the future, or you could just hold on to it for a future option. Number 4, there will be a $250,000 buffer for mistakes made during the allocation process. And if the buffer is not needed in the end, the commission may either allocate it to another proposal or it will be allocated to the emerging issues account. Number 5 is that allocations will be rounded to the nearest $1,000. Number 6 is that members may allocate available ENRTF dollars to the emerging issues account or to legislative discretion. So that would be dollars that the legislature could solely determine how to appropriate. A possible modification that was suggested at the end of last year's cycle was that the final amount recommended to either emerging issues or for legislative discretion, regardless of what members' evaluations result in, would be capped at $1 million each. And in that case, it would be understood that any final allocated funds over that amount would be considered a recommendation to return funds to the trust fund corpus on the even RFP years or roll them forward to the next RFP cycle for odd RFP years, since we are on a biennial budgeting cycle. Number 7, members may also leave funds unallocated. And it would be understood that if an individual member puts an unallocated amount, it's considered a recommendation to return those funds to the trust fund corpus in even years or to carry forward to the next RFP cycle in odd. So number 8 is that the administrative budget, the LCC legacy website, and the DNR contract will be included in the recommendations at the requested amount. So you don't need to allocate dollars to those projects. And then just as a reminder, staff compile your member evaluation number 2 results into a report to be used for your allocation decisions at your meeting. And the compiled results show the number of members allocating funds to a proposal, and then the average amount allocated by those allocating funds. So the blanks and the non-allocations are not included in the calculation. A 0 does not mean you're putting $0 to it. It just does not count towards that project. So if a proposal receives funding and funding allocation from a member, it is considered support for the funding by that member. And that allows us to tally the proposals by the number of members supporting. So you get that list that shows high to low support. And so I don't know if you want to have discussion about the modifications in step 6, but there is a sample motion at the bottom of this action item on the memo.
Ms. Nash, I had a question on number 5. Is that an up to nearest 1,000?
Mr. Chair, the way we have it calculated is that it is rounding. So we would do, if it's 5, it would go up. If it's 4, it would go down. But if you wanted to change that, you could.
Members, any discussion? Commissioner Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move, I'm looking for it here. I would move to adopt the evaluation number 2 and results compilation process as described in the staff memo, with the modification for step 3 as described in the staff memo, and with the modification for step 6 as described in the staff memo.
Ms. Nash, just on the capacity on 3.
Mr. Chair and members, unfortunately, we no longer can entertain that option at this time. So for step number 3.
I'll retract that.
Okay.
And I will move evaluation 2 compiled results numbers 1 through 8 without those that are in italics as possible modifications.
Is there any discussion? Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to ask if Commissioner Albrecht would accept a friendly amendment to number 5, say the rounded up to the nearest 100 or $1,000.
Commissioner Albrecht.
I'm not opposed to that, so I can reframe my motion to include that allocations will be rounded up to the nearest 1,000. Is that what you're suggesting, Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Albrecht incorporates that into her motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Green.
I would have to say I wouldn't be in favor of that. You could have just a small amount, and then you're rounding it up another $1,000. That doesn't really sound feasible to me. I think the way that it was would have been better, so I wouldn't support that.
Andrew, Commissioner Albright, and I just clarifying on number 6, were you dropping the italics in 6 or just in 3?
Both in 6 and 3. And to Mr. Chair, to your point, Senator Green, I think that is a good point. As Ms. Nash has noted, it's hard to do math on the fly. So, yeah, if that would cause someone to vote against this motion, I would reframe it to my original motion. Thank you. And I'm not including the italicized portions under number 3 or number 6.
So Commissioner Albright has not incorporated the rounding up $1,000. It would be rounding it to the nearest $1,000, the original motion. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to counter that and say that it doesn't impact the projects that are $800,000. What it impacts is the projects that are $50,000, because those are the small projects that have really sharpened their pencils and gotten the number down. So that was my concern, is that we're at $6,400, $6,400 or $60,000. That little amount can make a big difference. So I don't think it's a big deal either way.
Ms. Nash.
Mr. Chair and members, I'm sorry, this might be another Becca not doing math well in public. But I think for those small projects, there shouldn't be any rounding because you can only select the full amount. So, yep.
Good point. Thank you.
Okay,
So, Mr. Chair, I would renew my motion.
Commissioner Albert renews her motion. Clerk will take the roll.
So the amendment has been withdrawn.
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you. Gibson.
Yes.
Gibson, yes. Hansen.
Yes.
Hansen, yes. Her.
Yes.
Her, yes. Acomb.
Yes.
Acomb, yes. Albrecht.
Yes.
Albrecht, yes. Backer. Faber.
Faber, aye.
Faber, yes. Green. Green, yes. Heinzman.
Yes.
Heinzman, yes. Hollins.
Yes.
Hollins, yes. Langseth is excused. Moore.
More yes.
Moore, yes. Pikel.
Michael, yes.
Pikel, yes. Putnam.
Yes.
Putnam, yes. Reese.
Reese, yes.
Reese, yes. Westrom.
Yes.
Westrom, yes. Currently, there are 14 yes, 0 no.
Motion approved. And just to clarify, it was the incorporation of the up to that was withdrawn. Ms. Nash, next item.
Mr. Chair, I think Mr. Campana has an update on strategic planning.
Mr. Campana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to share my screen here to show a presentation. All right, so Mr. Chair, members of the committee, as most of you are aware, over the last 3 months, the LCCMR has been soliciting input from the public and subject matter experts to inform the Commission's current strategic planning process. So I'm just going to provide a little bit of an update on that public engagement process, as well as some of the preliminary results from the public survey. So there were 3 primary components to the public engagement process: a public survey, a subject matter expert survey, and listening sessions. We had more than 1,600 people respond to the public survey, 360 experts respond to a separate survey, and more than 100 people attend listening sessions remotely and in St. Paul, Brainerd, Detroit Lakes, and St. Cloud. Staff is currently analyzing information from these efforts, most of which will be presented at the Strategic Planning Subcommittee over the next month or so. However, staff thought the results of the public survey would be of general interest to the Commission, so I'm going to walk through the preliminary findings with you today. To begin with, the public survey was a broadcasted survey where we attempted to get as many responses as possible. That means while we tried to reach as many Minnesotans as possible, it was not designed to be a representative sample of Minnesotans. As directed by the subcommittee, we translated the survey into 4 different other languages: Spanish, Hmong, Somali, and Karen. And we emailed it directly to nearly 400 organizations across Minnesota, including environmental, natural resource, recreation, agriculture, energy, economic development, government, university and colleges, nonprofits, for-profits, community, and other groups. We emailed it to all legislators and the staff. We posted it to the LCCMR webpage and social media accounts. We sent it to everyone on the LCCMR Gov delivery list. We posted a press release, and we distributed a QR code at listening sessions. In all cases, we requested that recipients share with their networks. We are very thankful for the many people and groups who posted in their newsletters, on their websites, and otherwise shared it with their networks. Just to give one example of that, the Minnesota Indian Advisory Council had it posted on their homepage for almost 2 months, which was wonderful. And I also wanted to thank at this point Noah Fribley, who did handle a lot of the public engagement process and the listening sessions. With that, I'm going to enter into some of the data from the public survey, which I want to, right off the bat, thank Tom Dietrich, who also did a lot of the analysis on this. And so I wanted to say that before I forgot. So to begin with, I thought it might be helpful just to figure out who we reached with the survey. The survey included a number of demographic questions, which just gave us a sense of who was responding to the survey. So to begin with, I thought we'd talk about the age group and the age distribution. So there was a pretty good spread by age group. However, compared to Minnesota's adult population as recorded by the census, the survey responses underrepresented individuals from 18 to 34 and overrepresented individuals from 65 to 74. So just to give you a sense of the distribution by age. In terms of race and ethnicity, the survey respondents were predominantly white, around 85%. While Minnesota's population is also predominantly white, it's more around 78%. So the survey responses underrepresented minority populations. However, we did do a slightly better job reaching those populations than the 2019 public survey did with that for that strategic planning process. Moving on, in terms of geography and who the survey reached, the survey responses appear to overrepresent Northeast Minnesota. So about 15% of respondents were from the Northeast region, whereas about 7% of the general population lives in that region, and therefore also underrepresents all the other regions. So Metro, Central, Northeast, Southeast, or Northwest, Southeast, and Southwest. Looking at this way in a different way, responses from people living in greater Minnesota was about on target. So about 38% of respondents versus 39% of the general population responded to the survey. However, there were a lot of people who did not answer this question, about 9%, so it isn't clear if they would fall in that greater Minnesota or the metro region category. The survey did do a little bit of a better job than the 2019 survey of getting a balance between greater Minnesota and metro, so it's closer to the general population. Moving on to the types of organizations that respondents were affiliated with. We had a lot of unaffiliated responses, about 28%. Many of those were indicated that they were retired, just so you know why that number is so high. Many of the public responding were affiliated with nonprofits, about 29%. Respondents from academic, local and state government, and private organizations were the other major groups, varying from about 8 to 13% of the respondents to the survey. In terms of their affiliation with an agency, organization, or program that works on issues related to the environment or natural resources, about half of respondents had that affiliation and about half did not. And here we can see that about a quarter of respondents were affiliated with an organization that has received funding from the UNRTF, and more than half were not. Now that you have a sense of the respondents' backgrounds, I'm going to move into some of the results that we came up with. So we asked if prior to completing the survey, had people heard of the UNRTF or LCCMR or recognized the UNRTF logo? Here we see that about 20% of the respondents were not familiar with the UNRTF or LCCMR prior to completing that survey. We thought that was actually pretty good in terms of capturing some people who have not been involved in this process before in the survey. Next, what did respondents think should be the biggest focus for funding from the UNRTF? So this was the first really big question we asked them. Specifically, we asked them, which of the following do you think should be the biggest focus for funding from Minnesota's Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund? And we gave them a number of options. They could select up to 3. So I'm going to walk through these. So nearly 50% thought land, wildlife, and wildlife habitat should be the biggest focus for funding from the UNRTF. Lakes, rivers, and other aquatic habitat, climate change, and water quality were in the next tier, followed by outdoor recreation, agricultural practices, invasive species, environmental justice, energy use and production, water availability, recycling, reuse, and other waste management, the other option, and then air quality. For those of you curious about that other option, a lot of those responses were related to environmental education, which is going to be covered under one of the next questions in the survey, or in more specific areas, for example, forests, wetlands. So a little more specific from the more broad options that we have provided in the list. Now, some of you may wonder if the priority focus areas are different in different regions of the state. We've done our best to take a quick look at this, and I know this is a little bit of a complicated table here, but this table shows how the results look depending on the region someone lived in. Here was sort of our preliminary looking at this, what we grabbed out of this. Overall, the top focus areas and the bottom focus areas were fairly consistent across regions. So land and wildlife and habitat continued to be at the top, air quality continued to be at the bottom, and those groupings were generally the same. However, land and wildlife habitat was slightly less prioritized in southern Minnesota and the Northeast. Lakes, rivers, and other aquatic habitat was slightly more prioritized in the central and northwest regions. Climate change was generally of biggest concern in the metro region. Water quality was of greater concern in southern Minnesota and the central region. Outdoor recreation is generally a more important issue in northern Minnesota. Agricultural practices are a bigger issue in the southwest region. And environmental justice was generally a less important issue in greater Minnesota than the metro region, particularly the central and southwest regions. Looking at this data, we thought it was actually a good sign that a lot of this sort of would follow, I think, people's intuitive sense. So it was a good sign in terms of the public survey responses we were getting and how representative they might be. So what if for the respondent was affiliated with an agency, organization, or program that works on issues related to the environment and natural resources? In general, there was a lot of agreement between these two groups, but it does appear that environmental justice and climate change were a little less important for respondents with no affiliation with a group with environment and natural resources, whereas recycling, reuse, and other waste management, energy use and production, and air quality were less important for respondents with that type of environment and natural resources affiliation. The last survey question we asked focused on the public's priorities for funding in terms of issues. So that first question was really about, what the issues are and what people thought what the biggest issues were. This question was really about what did the public think is the best way to address those issues. So specifically, we asked, what is the best way funding could be used to address the focus areas you selected previously, ranked from highest to lowest priority? So we asked them to rank these. There were 7 options that generally represented the types of projects eligible for funding from the NRTF. The highest priority, based on the public survey, was restoring and enhancing land and water. Second was developing plans and designs for protecting, conserving, preserving, and enhancing natural resources, the environment, and outdoor recreation. Third was acquiring land for preservation, conservation, or outdoor recreation. Fourth was increasing education and public awareness. Fifth was conducting research or better understand issues, measure progress on achieving outcomes, and develop new tools, practices, or solutions. Sixth was ensure equitable funding distribution across all communities. And seventh was construct facilities and other infrastructure like trails, fishing piers, campgrounds, and solar panels. Once again, I'd emphasize with this question, the question wasn't about what's important and what's not important. It was ranking like most important to slightly lesser important. So it doesn't necessarily mean the 6th or 7th choice is not important to the public. It's just relative to the others, it fell down the list a little bit. So did that ranking change depending on where someone lives? The answer to that was not a lot. Priorities for addressing issues were fairly consistent across regions with the following exceptions. Land acquisition was a lower priority for respondents from the Northeast and Southwest regions. Ensuring equitable funding was a more important issue in the Southwest region. Those seem to be the biggest differences based on region. And what about if they were affiliated with an agency, organization, or program that works in environment and natural resources issues? Here, the rankings did not change, although we do see that people who did not answer the affiliation question had a stronger preference for research and less preference for land acquisition. But once again, it's a small difference there. So the final question we asked people, what was their big, bold idea for protecting or enhancing Minnesota's environment, natural resource, and outdoor recreations? This was an open-ended question that they could write answers into. We got over 1,200 responses to that question, which was amazing that so many people took the time to actually write something in there. It's a little hard to summarize all that information, but in your packet, we have all 1,200 responses. So if you have some time, you should definitely take a chance to look through it because there's lots of really good, interesting information in there. So needless to say, we're still working on kind of reviewing that and see if we can sort of summarize that for you. And sort of identify common themes. But some of the words, we did do a word cloud out of all that information because we thought at least that's a very quick way to handle this. And as you can see, some of the words that pop out are land, water, protect, nature, educate, fund, people, resource, need, outdoor, environment, public, plan. And if you look at this carefully, you'll see there's so many other words in there as well. So that's where we are in reviewing the public survey results. We're going to continue to work on these, see if we can refine the results, see if we can present something that might be a little more targeted and more useful to the commission and to the subcommittee as it does its strategic planning process. At that point here, I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions from members.
Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that presentation. I thought that was extremely well done. I may have missed this in the beginning. I'm just curious, how many total respondents did you get for your survey?
Mr. Campana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Moore. There were 1,641 responses to the survey.
Commissioner Moore.
Thank you. No further questions.
Commissioner Faber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be remorse. Could you go back to the first slide? Mr. Campana, with the pictures?
Mr. Campana.
Yes, 1 second. I'll pull that up.
Can you show it full screen? I want people to be able to see. Would like the audience to notice the picture in the upper left. Does anybody know what that bird is that's being released there?
I'm guessing you're going to tell us.
Yeah, you know what it is because I told you. So that's a golden eagle that has a GPS transmitter attached to its tail. You can't see it very well. I could list every person in there. That was my students and I involved in a project at Camp Ripley. This was taken at Camp Ripley about 12 years ago when we first started banding golden eagles. And if I'm not mistaken, the person second from the left over there that's behind the camera is current Senator Nathan Wiesenberg. He was doing volunteer field work there when we were there. And that, I know I was there even though I'm not in the picture because that's my car that I still drive. It's out in the parking lot out here. So I just thought you might find that interesting. I don't know where they got this picture, but it's pretty neat that we got a little acknowledgement. I teach at Central Lakes College in Brainerd, the Natural Resource Program. So just in case you're wondering, you ever get a question in some game you're playing or something, you'll know. Thank you.
Commissioner Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for that identifier on that picture. As a chair of the subcommittee that's doing the strategic planning, I just want to commend, first of all, our subcommittee because we designed the questionnaires. We worked through what questions should we ask, how long should the survey be. We made suggestions to staff on how to really distribute the information about the survey and the availability of it. And then I finally, as you noted, others have noted, staff has just done a tremendous job, first of all, scheduling public listening sessions and, advertising the survey and taking the questions and compiling the information in a very short turnaround time, really, in addition to reviewing all of the 214 applications that we had. So good job, staff, for this great report. And we'll continue to work through the strategic planning process over the summer. And hopefully we'll come back with a vision and mission and some new goals, or updated goals, I should say. We're looking forward to completing the process in a timely manner. And I appreciate the commission members that are sitting on that subcommittee as well. So thank you all.
Members, any other questions on strategic planning? Commissioner Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to ditto your comment to the staff. I went to one of those listening sessions and it was quite compelling to hear people. And I think also this gives us great guidance for the projects that we pick. And in reading all this stuff, I'm thrilled that what issues people really enjoy in Minnesota. It makes me really proud of our state. So thank you, staff, and thank you all the participants.
And just one question, it is on the website so people can see it. Ms. Nash.
Mr. Chair, yes, members, yes, it is. And I also just want to second your statements about staff excellent work and to give credit to Mike and Noah and Tom who have been taking the lead on all of this work.
Next, we'll go to public testimony. Ms. Nash, we have some written testimony. Do you want to reference that? And then we have Mr. Heller.
Mr. Chair and members, this should be in your packets and then is at the bottom of the meeting page. Today, there's a support letter from Senator Rob Kupek. There's a support letter from Emily Dick. There's an email from Mr. Heller from April 28th, 2024. And I think he's also coming up to the podium to provide some in-person testimony as well. And then there is the additional email from the PCA, which I referenced already in the director's report.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments before we move to Mr. Heller? Seeing none, Mr. Heller. 2 minutes.
Thank you, legislating, the LCC, Legislative Citizen Commission of Minnesota Resources. My name is Rick Heller. I unofficially represent the twice exceptional people with print disabilities. You can find those in House File 3299, Senate File 5222. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak on digital accessibility. The correspondence that's online is from Jim Melby Pacific. If you go to page 4 of the document, specifically he states, and this goes back to Tori Westrom, had previously requested Ms. Weber or Ms. Urick to come and testify at this committee about the progress on October of this year on digital accessibility, which Elizabeth posted online now. And it quotes, also regarding the voicemail, asking if the LCCMR is standalone organization and whether or not the LCCMR is governed by the LCC accessibility policy. The LCCMR is included under the LCC as it relates to digital accessibility policy. The LCCMR, along with the House and Senate and joint offices and commissions, must adhere to the state standards on digital accessibility beginning October 2024, end quote. I am a white male with an orange hat on, if it matters. Come here to testify before, starting in 2017. I would encourage perhaps Tori Weston to invite Ms. Urick, if necessary now, if this codifies that enough for him. He was on the bill, as Mr. Hensen here was, a similar bill in 2019 called House File 1962. Thank you for that piece, for that. So I will leave this one last thing at discretion of the chair, is this, that as we move ahead, that these third parties that are using our lotto dollars are required to do the same thing we're going to do in October for the public engagement. That's my recommendations as well, and that I continue to ask a motion to put in place for that process. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak.
Continue to work with LCC to make sure we are complying with the requirements.
The discretion of the chair, once more, is it's one thing for our stuff to be accessible, but the third parties is a much bigger piece, especially if they already use 508, which is part of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act. Thank you again.
Members, any other questions? If we adjourn, Ms. Nash, when does the strategic plan meet?
Mr. Chair and members, if we adjourn now, the subcommittee will start at 12 o'clock on the dot.
We are adjourned.